Greetings and salutations. So good to see you all one more time. I am Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist, and welcome to another episode of Sound Mind. First and foremost, as always, thank you all so much for the support, for your viewership, not just a Sound Mind, but just Hope TV in general. You all are just a great audience. You're a great extension of the Hope TV, House of Hope family. And on behalf of all of us here, we just want to be able to take a moment out just to say thank you and recognize out of all the millions of things you could be doing online, watching, you choose to watch Hope TV and watch Sound Mind. So from my heart and from the Hope TV family, thank you all so very much. So, okay, let's go ahead and dive into this particular episode for this week. This one is very near and dear to me because it's a subject matter that comes up a lot in my practice with my patients. And when I see this particular dynamic that we're going to be discussing today in this episode, it's so relevant in so many ways that I wanted to really bring it to you all, our Sound Mind and Hope TV family. Now, this one I know is blessed because I wanted to go in a whole different direction. I had the idea for this episode already out, but God woke me up literally at 3:40 a.m. and said, no, I want to take you in a different direction. And so we pulled this together based on some of the, again, demographics and things that I hear from those that come see me for individual and marriage therapy in particular. So this particular episode for this week is going to be about the 7 code words to the safe. Again, this episode is called the 7 code words to the safe, okay? So the backdrop of this, as far as the relevance and the history, is that we live in a technology-driven society where we don't have combinations anymore. We have code words. If you want to get into your email, it requires a password or a code word. And if you want to get into your phone, it requires some type of coding, code word, code numbers to get into whatever is important to you, whatever is relevant, whatever is in need of being guarded. So a lot of times in my practice, what I find people saying, particularly in my couples and my marital therapy sessions, is oftentimes people say, I don't feel safe. I don't feel as if I can talk to my spouse and share and disclose because if I say something, there's going to be something that's going to be done, that's going to be adverse in reaction, so I just prefer not to say anything. And sometimes even working with the child and adolescent population, when I'm processing with them about things that are going on, and I ask them, well, have you shared this information with your parents or with anybody else? They say no, because I don't feel safe. And so I kept hearing that over and over again, and I wanted to pull together the 7 demographics, 7 characteristics, or as we're going to call them today, as we're calling them today, the 7 passwords. Now, with each one of these passwords, we're going to give you definition, and we're going to tell you why it's important. But then we're also going to present what I call the barriers and the bridges, like what stops this from happening and how do we overcome it, okay? So you're going to get that with each password. So if you know anything about how I do and how I get down, it's important for me to always establish definition, because one of the things that is a barrier to effective communication is that we don't have what's called an operational definition, meaning that we can use the same word, but we can have a different definition for it. And as a result, we end up not being able to effectively communicate. So I want to be able to give a definition for each aspect of our episode's title, okay? So the reason why we have 7 is because 7 is the blessed number of completion. If you look that up from a biblical regard, 7 means it's completed. It's a number of completion. You know, God created everything in 7 days, okay? We have 7 days of the week, so 7 is recognized as a number of completion. So what we're putting in the atmosphere is saying if we demonstrate these 7 characteristics, these 7 dynamics, we're going to be able to complete what the atmosphere needs to feel like for us to feel safe as well as those that we love, okay? Now, I always do a lot of research because I'm research-based, research-minded on definition, because I always want to make sure that we, again, can agree on the definition of whatever terminology that we're using. And for password, our definition is something that enables one to pass or gain admission, okay? That's our definition for password. Something that enables one to pass or gain admission, okay? And when we look at our word for safe, we're using safe in 2 different dynamics here. We're using safe as far as a state but then it's also safe in terms of security, okay? An actual physical security like a safe where you would keep your valuables in. So the definition that we have for safe is involving little to no risk of harm, injury, to preserve something of value that's designed to protect something of value. So that's our definition for 7, our definition for password, and then our definition for safe. So when we put all that together for our operational definition for today's episode, here's our operational definition for our episode today. It's the 7 characteristics that enables one to pass or gain admission to another's protected emotional, mental, and spiritual valuables that involves little to no risk of harm, injury, or hurt for the purpose of protecting one's emotional, mental, and spiritual state from damage. So that is our definition for today's episode, the 7 passwords to the safe, okay? So let's go into our first password / code word. And our first password / code word is accessible, okay? Now, accessible as defined in how we're going to apply it in this dynamic is able to be reached, friendly, and approachable, easy to talk to. Again, our definition for this episode in terms of code word number 1, accessible, is able to be reached, friendly and approachable, easy to talk to. So why is this important when you're talking about having a safe environment? Very simple. Being accessible is important because if people can't get to you, then they don't see you as a safe place. So what would be the barrier to a person being accessible? Being overcommitted. And we live in a day and a time where we're always busy. And one thing that I tell my patient population, there's a difference between being busy and being effective. So a lot of times we got a lot of things going on, but we're not focused and concentrated on any one thing. So we got a whole lot going on, but we're not really doing anything because we have so much going on, we're overcommitted. So one of the barriers to being accessible is you can be overcommitted. It's too many people that you have on your schedule, too many people that have access to you. And as a result, if a person wants to reach out to you, and this can be a spouse, it could be a best friend, it could be how you may feel people make you feel as far as whether you gauge your safety with them. Accessible is very important in this dynamic because, again, if people can't get to you, they can't get with you to even share what's going on. So what is the bridge that overcomes being overcommitted? It's letting people know and showing them that they're the priority, okay? So it's one thing to tell people, hey, you matter to me, you're important, you mean the world to me, but are we actually demonstrating that in our actions? It's not just words, it's through the actual carving out of a space in your life to make certain that those people are the individuals that know that whenever they need anything, if you're wanting them to feel safe around you, that they know that they have a distinct place that's just for them, okay? And that's important.
We're talking about healthy aging and healthy living.
I'm so passionate about feeding your skin the truth. And the truth is with fruits, vegetables, and all type of herbs. And that's really my motto is feed your skin the truth.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Start saving more for retirement so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
What type of encouragement or something you would tell single people dating? Because
social media is not permanent. Social media is artificial. Learn how to be yourself with a person. Be honest.
And know your worth. And I will say this: quit valuing yourself like a Rolls Royce, but you showing hoopty mentality. You parading around like a hoopty. Because real men, somebody worth something, we not looking to take a hoopty home.
Now, let me say this, not just as a practitioner, but also as a husband. One of the things that I do, and I want to help my brothers out who are husbands or thinking about being husbands, one of the things that I do is I always tell my wife that she is definitely the priority. She's my first earthly priority. And part of me being accessible is making certain that she has a particular ringtone, and she's also, if you're an iPhone user, she's also on the emergency bypass list, her and my children, which means that if any one of them call, I can be in session, I could be sitting with the president, I can have my phone on silent, but it's going to make sure that they have access to me. It's going to bypass everything that phone is meant to do to be silent because I've given them accessibility to me. So those are the actions that I show as a husband and as a father to let my family know that I'm not just telling you that I'm here. I want to show you by giving you direct accessibility to me, okay? So just something to help you out to make certain that no matter how your day is structured, no matter how things are going, you want to make certain that you are accessible. Remember, the definition of accessible in terms of safety is we want to be sure that we are able to be reached, that we are friendly and approachable. We're easy to talk to. So not just the fact that we are able to be reached, but when people reach us, are we friendly? Are we approachable? Are we easy to talk to? Do we have an attitude? Do we act as if we're being inconvenienced? Do we give off that energy? And you know sometimes what that energy feels like. If we're honest and transparent, we've given that energy sometimes, and we've had that energy be given to us. And we know what that feels like. We knew and we know what that feels like. So that will make a person feel as if you aren't accessible simply because of the energy that you give off. And if you do have a conversation with them, you kind of give off the feeling of being annoyed. So these are just things that matter because people who want to feel safe with you will have to be able to feel as if you are accessible, okay? So that's code word number one is accessible, all right? So you see where we're going? So that's code word number one, okay? Remember, we got seven. So we just went over number one. So now, let's go to code word number two. Code word number two to the safe is available, all right? And our definition for available is as follows. Real simple. I kept it real simple with this one. Not otherwise occupied, free to do. Our definition for accessible, again, not otherwise occupied, free to do. And I like that definition because it's saying even if a person isn't busy doing something, they make themselves available and they're free to do, okay? So one of the things that we look at in terms of the importance of why being available matters so much in regards to safe is once a person has access to you, okay, it's a matter of how available we make them feel, okay? And part of making them feel available is making certain that we give them the complete autonomy of that moment. They were not preoccupied doing a million one other things. They were not giving off the energy that makes them feel as if they are, again, an inconvenience, that we're available. We are shifting our energy. We are shifting our focus. We are shifting everything to them in that moment, okay? Because that's what makes a person feel safe. Now think about it. Not just being accessible, not just can I get to you, but can I get with you? Are you available, okay? And as we're going through these, ask yourself the question about your circle, your circumference. Who do you feel safe with? Do you give this off to other people? So this is a really great exercise that I use with my couples, that I use with individuals who express issues concerning feeling emotionally and mentally and spiritually safe in terms of assessing what the barriers are to this, okay? So in regards to the barriers to being available, what's one of the barriers? Again, being overcommitted, overoccupied. In lay terms, simply doing too much, doing way too much. Because sometimes people will say that they're available, but available doesn't mean that we're just in the same place, but it means also that we're in the same space. Let me say that again. That's very important because I share that with my couples in marriage therapy and couples therapy. You don't want to just be in the same place. You want to be in the same space. Like, you could be in the same house, but if you have a 5-bedroom home, everybody's in a different room, you're in the same place. But the kitchen table, when you all come together, that's when you share the same space. And it's the energy that you give one another in that space, the feedback, the conversations, the observations, the moments where hopefully you're putting all technology down and you're really enjoying the humanity of those moments. It's very important because you want to be available to people that you love, okay? So that's one of the barriers, again, is being overcommitted, doing too much. What's the bridge? Making sure that you plug into humanity, making sure that you plug into exactly what it is that's going on with them and giving them your full, undivided attention, okay? Because that says that you're safe with me. How do I know that you're safe? Because you've made yourself, code word number 1, accessible, and you've also made yourself available, okay? You see where we're going with this? You see where we're going? Okay, good. All right. So let's go to code word number 3. Code word number 3 is attentive, okay? Code word number 3 is attentive, all right? Now, this is what's super important about being attentive as it relates to safety. Because once a person has access to you and you've made yourself available, now the matter is, do they have your attention? Because if a person is coming to you because they need something and they're wanting to share something, and remember, when we talk about safety, we're talking about without harm or injury or securing something of value, okay? So how attentive can we be to people that we say that we love if we're not giving them the platform and the space that lets them know that they are indeed a priority, that we are indeed focused on them? A lot of times what comes up in my marriage sessions a lot, in my couple sessions a lot, these phones, literally, these phones are robbing us of so much intimacy and so many meaningful moments when we're literally in the same house and people are texting in the same house. People will even call instead of going up and seeing what the environment may be that someone's going up in, that may be going on in their home. And as a result, you miss a lot, okay? And that attentive dynamic is something that conveys that questioning, am I safe with you? Yes, I have access. Yes, you've even made yourself available. But am I safe with you? Because I have to question whether or not I have your attention. So one of the things that I do recommend with this particular dynamic is making sure that you're honest and transparent with those that you love in terms of saying what it is that you particularly need, okay? If you would like for your loved one, your spouse, or your children to give you their full attention, sometimes you got to ask for it and say, hey, when I'm talking, do you mind looking me in my eyes when I talk? Do you mind putting the phone down? Because it makes me feel as if you're paying full attention. Now, one of the things that I tell couples to do with the attentive part is literally not just putting your phone down, but literally turning your body to face them, looking them in the eyes, and making sure that you're directly in front of them in some capacity to let them know that no matter what game is on, even if it's the Alabama and Auburn game, which we know Alabama will win anyway, Roll Tide. Even if it's the Alabama-Auburn game, you still going to have my attention to make certain that you know that you matter and that you're relevant and that you are important to me and that this is safe, okay? Because again, you got to take into consideration how safe can a person feel if they don't have your attention. Think about when accidents happen. How do accidents happen? Because we're not paying attention. So we want to avoid the accidents in our lives as far as our relationships and all of the dynamics that we encounter on a day-to-day basis simply because we want to be attentive, okay?
Today, we're talking about caregiving and self-care.
My heart goes out to caregivers. When she was caregiving for her mom, she didn't take care of herself. And unfortunately, a year after I met her, she died because she didn't have the same type of care that she provided her mom. and that she showed me how to provide to my father. You have to take care of yourself. You know, I heard someone say that caring for someone who once cared for you is one of the highest honors you can give.
I love that. I think about my parents and they raised me, like you said, and now we help them.
We grew up with those kind of thoughts and sayings like, "Oh Lord, I don't want to take all of God's glory." Honey, who do you think you are? You can take God's glory. You haven't done anything. When was the last time you made a sun rise or a tide go in or out, or you set the stars in its place? So we can't take God's glory.
I was so certain you was gonna preach us tonight. You preaching us. You preaching us.
The definition for attentive is being mindful, focused, and observant. Again, the definition for attentive is being mindful, focused, and attentive, okay? And the reason why those three are so important is because mindfulness means that we are being completely considerate of what it is that someone is going through in that moment. Because remember, this is a moment about safety, all right? Focused means that there's no other distractions. We have no distractions to look at, no distractions that basically send the message that something else is of more importance. And sometimes what happens is people can quietly feel rejected because they feel as if the focus isn't there, okay? And so we want to avoid all that just by, again, being attentive. Being observant. Now, observant is a little different than focused from a clinical regard, from a psychological regard. I see observant as more so as being able to see the unseeable, okay? Can you look at a person and tell that their countenance is heavy? Can you tell, because you've paid attention to them, that they may be a little bothered by something that may have happened? And you're inquiring of that, and even if they give you some resistance, still being able to assess the fact that, hey, there's a dynamic here that's going on that requires my attentiveness and my attention, okay? So what are the barriers? What are the barriers to being attentive? Again, technology, busyness, doing too much, overcommitted, all of that presents to be a barrier to being attentive. And as we give the barrier, what's the bridges? How do we get across that barrier? By being what I call intimately interactive, okay? Intimately interactive. What that means is I'm being intentional in placing my energy into engaging you across all of the realms possible, meaning you have my focus and my energy emotionally, you have my focus and my energy physically, and you have my focus and my energy spiritually. So it's making sure that that interaction is intimate because it's very inclusive in everything that's going on, because when a person is looking for safety, they're looking for every aspect of their being to be ministered to be fed, to be nurtured. Because if we're not demonstrating being attentive, then 9 times out of 10 what's going to happen is we're going to have a person that feels as if there is some compromise in their safety. Because what you got to take into consideration is when a person is coming and they're wanting to share, they're wanting to disclose, they're also pushing past their own vulnerabilities. And once they share and disclose how they feel, and if we're not being attentive, then what ends up happening is they get the impression as if it's not relevant to you, so it shouldn't be relevant to them. They feel dismissed. But then also, it sends the message that everything that it took for them to even share that it didn't matter. And we don't know how much it takes for a person just to come and talk to us. And that's one thing for me as a clinical practitioner of 26 years. The first thing I tell every single patient that comes to me for therapy is that I'm proud of them and I commend them for even coming, because I know what it took for them just to get the courage to be able to reach out, grab that phone and say, hey, I need help in this area of my life. I want to receive therapy. My marriage needs work. And when I commend them, that's letting them know that I see them. And I recognize the fact that it took a lot of courage in pushing past their vulnerability. So those are victories that I think should be celebrated by letting people know that you have their full well-being at stake, and also making certain that they know that they have your full attention moving forward in that regard. So that's why it's important in that dynamic, okay? So let's go to code word number 4, okay, to close out this episode. Code word number 4 is accepting, okay? Code word number 4 is accepting, okay? And accepting is defined as follows. It's recognizing as valid, having a sound basis, being non-judgmental. Again, the definition of accepting is recognizing as valid, having a sound basis, being non-judgmental. Now, what's important is understanding that accepting is so relevant because oftentimes when people are sharing, if we give them the idea that they're overreacting or doing too much, what ends up happening is they feel rejected. So it's important to be able to give accepting as a characteristic when it comes to providing a safe environment, because what you're saying is what that person has felt, what they have experienced, what they're going through is that it's valid. And then we're being non-judgmental. Now, here's the thing that I often tell people in my practice. How you feel is how you feel. No one has the right to tell you what to feel and how to feel it. It's your right. So because of that, it's not a matter of attempting to justify whether something is right or wrong. It just is, okay? So in that accepting, what I often say is this. If you're talking about being accepting to an individual, let them tell you what it is before you try to tell them what it is not. Or let me kind of come outside of my professional credentials for just a couple of seconds and let me kind of take it back to the West Coast, being originally from Los Angeles. Before you try to tell a person what it ain't, let them tell you what it is. Real simple. Because a lot of times that's a barrier to being accepting, is because we want to tell everybody what it is for them without even listening to what it is that they're saying. And that's why being accepting is so important to provide a safe environment, because what you're saying is what you feel is valid. And I'm being non-judgmental because I don't know what it is that you have felt nor experienced. And because of that, I'm accepting of it. Now, here's the caveat to that. Accepting doesn't mean that we are in agreement. That's not what it means. Accepting means that we're seeing what you feel, what you've experienced is valid, because you're coming to us for a safe place. So it's not a matter of saying whether it's right or wrong. It's being able just to provide a place for you to feel safe enough to say what it is. And if I've demonstrated a sense of safety, eventually that person is going to be able to process on their own the relevance of what they feel to come up with their own answers. And that's the beautiful part about therapy, is that being accepting, you just provide an environment for people to come and process and vent, and eventually they'll come to their own conclusions that they are comfortable with. So that's why being accepting is so important. So what are the barriers? What are the barriers to being accepting? It's being biased and insensitive, okay? Being biased and insensitive is a barrier to being accepting. You have your own biases and you make these conclusions based on what you think you would do. Now, one thing that I say professionally and personally is always funny how people will say what they would do until it's them. Everybody has an opinion about what they would do until their emotions, their finances, their heart is at stake. Then everybody wants to be compassionate at that point. But if we just give people compassion ongoingly in that regard, then we create a web and an ecosystem of compassion that we find to be interchangeable, and then we're all going to be able to benefit from that. Now, one of the bridges to being accepting is being open-hearted and open-minded. Whatever a person brings is what they bring, and that's what it is. It's us being receptive. It's us being inviting, saying, come share, because this is a safe place, okay? So in this episode, we have gone over the 4 code words / passwords to the safe. We went over being accessible. We went over being available. We went over being attentive, and we also went over being accepting, okay? So those are the 4. Remember, we got 7. So in the next episode, we're going to go over the code words / passwords for number 5, the 6th, and the 7th. Code words / passwords, and then we're going to have our summary, then we're going to wrap it all up together. So please tune in for the next episode so that you can get all 7 of the code words / passwords to the safe. And in the meantime, just make sure that you're asking yourself the question, do people make me feel safe based on these dynamics? It's a great conversation starter. Ask people, do I make you feel safe based on these dynamics, okay? So let's do some of the preliminary work so we can pull it all together and create a safe environment for those that we love emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So with that being said, as we always do about this time, I am Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist, and thank you so much for tuning in today's episode of Sound Mind. And as always, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he turn his love and smile and countenance towards you, blessing you when you're going out and you're coming in. And may he grant you shalom peace. Again, I'm Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist. This has been another episode of Sound Mind, and we will see you in the next episode to finish out the 5th, 6th, and 7th code words / passwords to the safe. Love you all. Thank you for your support. Be blessed. See you later. Bye.
One of the things God told me was, and to answer your question about what makes me different, he said, you're going to be authentic. Yes, other coaches will be able to help people, but you're going to be able to do that because of your authenticity of how you went through. And then secondly, what makes me different is I am a prayer warrior. I war for my clients. I intercede for my clients. I pray for my clients.
You've just answered the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our questions right there.